All right, let me begin with a few questions for all of you. Do you feel like you could be making a bigger impact with your business? Do you have an area of expertise that you love talking about? And of course, are you wanting more income for 2022? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are in the right place, because our presenter today coaches speakers and trainers, consultants and coaches to become thought leaders. She is also a thought leader in innovation and virtual facilitation. Her phone is ringing off the hook as we speak. It's probably not hers, but back to her. Her clients have included the Mayo Clinic, Stanford University, and the Department of Homeland Security. She's a TEDx speaker, a podcast host, and the creator of Climer cards, a wonderful facilitation tool we'll be using today. And I did slip in the word wonderful because I've used them. They're phenomenal, and I gush about them. So when not working, Amy Climer can be found building something in her wood shop or paddling her new whitewater canoe. She has a great love of the outdoors. So helping us learn to be thought leaders, please join me in welcoming from Asheville, North Carolina, speaker, facilitator, I was covering that up, and DIY addict, Dr. Amy Climer.
Thank you, Craig. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. I really enjoyed the conversations already. We got a little warmed up thinking about thought leadership and expertise. So today, what I'm going to focus on is looking at, well, how do you be a thought leader? Like, what does that actually mean? And just felt like this. I'm also curious. I know many of you already know each other for a while. Is that what y'all say, bacon? Yeah. Is that how you? Okay. Good. I love it. Like when you met in person, did you have bacon at your meetings? Okay, good. Because that would just be like, you need to do that. Awesome. I want to know a little bit more about what type of expertise is in the room. I mean, obviously, I know you all are consultants and doing a variety of things under that big, broad category, but I want you to find the chat box, and in the chat box, all in one response, well, most of you already have your name, so you can skip your name, but where are you in the world right now? I know most of you probably in California, but where are you? And then what's your area of expertise? Just like a word or two to give me a little bit of context. Today you're supposed to bring your own bacon. That's awesome, man. All right, who do we have here? Oops. Okay, I'm just going to read out some of the different topics that you all are expertise on. Executive coaching, search engine optimization, burnout, DEI, business interactions, health and wellness, improvisational play, intergenerational connection. I love that. Time management, sales and marketing to people 50 plus. Ooh, Lisa, I like the specificity there. That's cool. Executive coach, sales and communication, project leadership, creativity, franchise consultant, emotional intelligence, information design. Okay, I think and emerging leaders. I'm not going to read all of these, but awesome. So, okay, we've got a really nice diversity here. This is good. This is going to be helpful for today. If you don't yet have the handout, let us know. We can put that chat in there again. The handout is really more of a nice to have. You don't have to have it today, but if you just want it as reference for later, it's there for you. So, all right. I also want to say at the end, I mean, we don't have a ton of time together, just under an hour. But if you want me to send you some more resources about some of the things I talk about, if you drop your email address in the chat, and you're welcome to either private message me or you can share that with everyone. I will later, I'll pull those email addresses out and I will email you some more resources. So if you're interested in that, I just want to say it up front, and I'll remind you again, because you might be like, yeah, I don't know you yet. I don't know if I want to share my email with you, but maybe by the end, you'll feel more comfortable with who I am. All right. So first thing we're going to do, I want you to think about a goal that you have for your business, your consulting practice in 2022. Just keep that in your head for a moment. And we're going to do a quick activity that in a moment, but not yet, but in a moment, we're going to put a link in the chat for you. And when you go to that link, you're going to see this website. And at the top of the website, there is a question that says, select a card, one of these images, that represents a goal you have for your business or your practice for 2022. So an image that's like a metaphor or a symbol, you're going to find that, click on it, put your name, just first name is fine, it doesn't matter, and then why you chose that card. So like a sentence or two of why you chose that card, hit create response, and then you'll see everybody else's response once you've created yours. So we're going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat for that first Climer card activity. This is the Climer card tool that Craig was referencing a moment ago. There's the link in the chat. So go there now and click on a card that represents a goal you have for your business or your practice in 2022. Someone just give me a head nod or a yes if it's working. Okay, I'm seeing thumbs up. Cool.
I don't see the link, Amy. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we can put that in there again. Let's see.
Oh, I see it now. I see it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, glad you asked. All right, just going to give another moment for people to finish up. And once you finish, you're welcome to read other people's responses. Nice. All right, as you're finishing up, if you're still working, keep working. I'm going to give you some directions. In a moment, we're going to go into breakout rooms, and we could have 2 to 3 people total in your room. Once you get in your breakout room, each person take about 1 minute. Introduce yourself, share your name if you don't know each other, and which image you selected and why. And I love that you already, in Bacon, already have the culture of having a timekeeper. So if somebody in your group could keep time for about a minute, and the purpose for that is the obvious one, like, you don't go over time, but also fill the minute, like go in depth enough that it's a full minute of which, what your goal is and which image you chose. And we're going to say the person with the next birthday, today's January 28th. So whoever's birthday is next goes first. And we're going to give you about 5 minutes total. So after you finish each sharing about a minute, feel free to continue talking about your goals and what you're looking forward to in 2022. All right, we're going to open up those breakout rooms. All right, welcome back, everyone. How are your conversations? Yeah, thumbs up. Awesome. I see some big smiles. Good. I think it's always fun in January to talk about goals and what's coming up and thinking big and thinking about possibilities and looking at the goals that you all talked about. There's a lot in here. So some of you are maybe thinking about writing some books, wanting to do some more network, global expansion. So really exciting to see some of those goals. So I want you to think about those goals in particular as we're talking about thought leadership moving forward. And I'm going to describe kind of how I think of thought leadership. And I think it's kind of maybe like a little bit more narrow of a definition than what we talked about earlier this morning. And I don't necessarily think it's the right thing for every consultant or every person by any means. And there's like many ways to do this kind of work that we do. So anyway, we're going to get into that. But first, I want you to think about, especially if one of your goals has anything to do with getting more business, like selling, getting more clients or sales or any of that. Think about this concept that hiring you is a really big risk. And when I understood this, it really changed how I approach sales or how I talk with my clients. So until a client knows you well, they don't know what they're going to get from you. I mean, they might have some ideas, right? But they're taking a risk and they're putting themselves out there in order to bring you into their organization or to hire you as a coach or whatever the context is, they're taking a risk. And the risk is their money, certainly, right? Most of us don't work for free. Their money, their time. If they're bringing you into their organization, then it's their reputation. And some cases that, if that went poorly, that could be really bad for their career or so forth. So there's a lot at stake for them when they're bringing you in. And I find that's helpful to think about, because what I want to do as a consultant and speaker, trainer, coach, I'm going to use that word consultant in the broadest of senses, is I want to mitigate that risk. I want to lower that risk as much as possible. And so one of the ways that I do that is by positioning myself as a thought leader. And in our small group, somebody said, I don't remember who it was, like, oh, I don't really like to think of myself as a thought leader. And I would definitely agree in that I don't talk about myself as a thought leader unless I'm with other consultants and we're having a conversation about it. But I don't have on my website like, hey, I'm a thought leader in this. I think it's one of those things that other people decide if you are a thought leader on a certain topic. And we'll get more into that. But let's, get my mouse in the right place. Let's just talk about like, what is a thought leader? What is this concept? So I do think there's a connection between thought leadership and expertise, but it's not the same thing. So I think of an expert is someone someone who knows a lot about something. So my guess is that everybody here in that's here together in this program, like all of us are experts on something, right? That's kind of what we just talked about this morning. So experts know a lot about something. Thought leaders are known for knowing a lot about something. So, like in my world, I do a lot around innovation and creativity. And so if you ask me like, oh, who are some of the thought leaders on creativity? I could spot out some people like, oh, Dr. Teresa Amabile, who's just retiring now from Harvard, Dr. Linda Hill, like basically the people that wrote these books behind me, I think of them as thought leaders. And thought leaders are the people who are contributing new knowledge, new insights, new concepts to the broader field that they're working within. Just going back to some of your topics. So for instance, like emotional intelligence, think about like, who are the people you know of that are contributing to the field in the world of emotional intelligence? Who are the people that you know of who are leading the field in time management? Like if you're an expert in time management, you've read, these 3 books, whatever they are, like, David Allen's, I just blanked on the name of his book, about getting things done. So that's what I think of when I think of as a thought leader. A colleague of mine likes to say, being a thought leader is about not being a thought repeater. So it's not about presenting and focusing on other people's content, but it's about bringing your own content in and your own thoughts in. Now, we all stand on the shoulders of giants. So this doesn't mean that you're coming up with this stuff out of nowhere. It is about building on the work of other people, right? So yes, like I have done some research and I've contributed to the field of creativity, but man, that is based on like hundreds and hundreds of other amazing researchers and people who have just done awesome work. And yes, I'm building on them and I want to give them credit when I'm talking about my own work, right? In fact, a lot of what I'm sharing today around thought leadership, I learned from a few people out in Australia who are basically thought leaders of thought leaders, Matt Church and Peter Cook. There's these amazing 2 men out there who I had the privilege to learn from for a couple of years. So that's what I think of when I think about a thought leader. And as a consultant, you don't have to be a thought leader, but you can. You could also position yourself as an expert. Both of them are okay. One is not necessarily better than the other. In fact, I just worked with a consultant last week, I think it was, in Nashville, Tennessee, Craig. And his entire consulting practice is based on the work of Patrick Lencioni. So he's trained with Patrick Lencioni. He's doing, work based on, and I would say Patrick Lencioni is a thought leader. And then this friend of mine is so he's really an expert, but he's not necessarily contributing in that he's writing books and materials and so forth. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Cool. All right. Was there a comment or question? No.
I just said yes.
Okay, cool. Oh, thank you. All right. So that's one thing I want to point out, was just like what a thought leader is. The other thing I want to point out, and I think you all as consultants, you've already been using this phrase practice, but this is something that I just like to point out, is that I think of the work that I do as like I have a practice versus a business. And as a thought leader, this makes sense because they're basically hiring you for your expertise. So I think of a practice as like, you know, a dentist, so a dentist might have a dental practice. If my dentist were to move to a different office, I'd probably just go with him. You know, I like the guy, right? Same thing with my doctor. Like, I don't care what business or what practice she's a part of, I'm going to her. And that's what a consultant's practice is. Like, they're hiring you. Versus a business, I think of a business as essentially something you could sell, right? So, and some of you might be like building up training businesses where maybe you have trainers that work under you, which is awesome. Like, you're building up this thing that you can sell, basically. Whereas the practice is all based on you. Is that kind of fit with how you all use the word practice? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Okay, cool. So that's what I think of. Like, I think that in the context for today, at least, thought leadership fits well within the practice model versus the business model. So given all that, let's talk about why bother, like why be a thought leader? I would definitely say it's a little bit different type of work than being a consultant expert in something. I think there's two main reasons. The first is impact, and that you have this possibility to make an even bigger impact in the world. One of the things as a thought leader is that you have to get your thoughts out there in the world, right? So that's the leader part of it. So you're writing books, you're writing blog posts, maybe you have a podcast, like whatever the methodology is, you're getting your thoughts out in the world. And so it's not based just on people who are able to work directly with you. And so therefore you can have a bigger impact. I think you're also having that impact on the field, the bigger field that you work within, time management, creativity, leadership, whatever that field is. And so you're having an impact on that, which I think's kind of exciting. The other element is potentially you can make more money, which since most of us are in business for ourselves, this is important for us to think about. And obviously we probably have a range of different income goals around here, but in income, you can potentially charge more for what you're doing than if you are bringing in your own original content. If they're hiring you just because of your expertise and your like insights and take on that particular thing, that's more valuable than hiring, somebody else who just, is maybe trained by somebody. And anyway, so point is you can make more money. So impact and income are kind of the two big reasons why I think of being a thought leader can be valuable. So I want you to think about what might you be a thought leader in. So some of you like have this dialed, and it sounds like some of you might be kind of newer into the world of consulting. Maybe you're coming from an employee situation. So what do you want to be a thought leader in? I have found that one sort of, metric to think about is, what are people asking you advice for? So I had this really interesting experience when the pandemic hit March 2020. I had actually been using Zoom for quite a while. I was very comfortable with it. I obviously not to the degree we are now, but I'd been running webinars and trainings on it for a while. And so when the pandemic hit, all these people I knew, friends, colleagues, clients, they started emailing me and saying, hey, Amy, can you help me figure out how to do Zoom well? Like, I got the basics, the videos on the Zoom website are pretty decent. Like, they'll teach you the basics, but how do you make this engaging and interesting? And the first couple of people, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll jump on a call with you. Happy to help you. And then I got pretty overwhelmed. I was getting so many questions. I'll be honest with you, I actually got really frustrated. And I'm like, why are all these people calling me? Like, what am I, the Zoom expert or something? And then as soon as I said that, I think I just said it out loud to myself in my office. I was like, wait a minute, there's something here. And I realized that I was being viewed as a bit of a small, tiny thought leader in this realm of virtual facilitation. And so I just went with it. I launched this course in April 2020 that I then trained hundreds of people over the next year on how to facilitate via Zoom well. Not the basics, not Zoom 101, but how do you make this engaging and interesting? And so I realized, wow, okay, so I'm now being looked at as an expert. And I think that next level of being a thought leader is the teaching of it, putting out your own content, which is what I did with my course, that kind of thing. So thinking about, what are people asking you questions around? What are people, when they're like, hey, can we just go to coffee? I really want to pick your brain about this. And if you start getting the same thing over and over, pay attention there. That might be something. All right, I just want to glance in the chat. Oh, yeah, I love this. To me, practice also means you have to be actively practicing what you preach and honing your craft. Yes, you have to have your own skin in the game and expect your clients to take your advice. Yeah. Yael, how do I say your name? Am I saying that right? Yael? Okay, I'm getting a thumbs up from Craig.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Yael. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I was actually gave this keynote yesterday to about 500 people about creativity and innovation. And I shared this story of a moment when my dad called me out for basically like shooting down an idea of his. And he said to me, he's like, okay, Miss Creativity. And I was like, oh gosh, like here I am, like teaching people how to be creative. And I'm just being like the total jerk. And I was not practicing my craft. And so I was actually thankful that he called me out. And but yes, we do have to practice that. Luann says, we forget how much we know until we keep getting asked. Yes, I think sometimes, so I occasionally, I coach usually like one or two thought leaders at a time, people who are interested in building a thought leader practice. And one of the things that some of my clients have struggled with is this idea that if something's really easy for us, then like, why should we teach that? Or why should we get paid for it? It's like, yeah, but that's why you're getting paid for it, because it comes easy to you. And sometimes I think we get a little confused, particularly women, I think struggle with this even more, that work is supposed to be difficult. And so if it's not hard, we shouldn't get paid for it. So yeah, good question there. Good point. All right. As a thought leader who's trying to make an income from this, looking at that commercial angle of being a thought leader, there are three things that you want to focus on. And these three things you cannot hire out. So you can't have like an assistant come in and do it for you, or a colleague. Like, you personally need to do these three things. And that is think, sell, and deliver, right? So let me break each of those down. And this comes from Matt Church and Peter Cook, who I mentioned before, who have this program in Australia called Thought Leaders Business School. So think, it is about your thought leadership. So you can't like have somebody else do that thinking for you. You might have an assistant do some research, or, pull some articles together for you to read or something like that. That's fine. But at the end of the day, you have to do like the reading and the thinking and the pulling together those, you have to consume it and then spit that out. And we'll talk more about that in a few minutes, but you need to do the thinking. The selling, as someone who has a practice, can be very difficult to have somebody else do that. And I'm just curious, does anybody here have somebody else doing their selling? Because there is our context where this works really well, but does anybody else have like an assistant or who does selling for them? No one. Okay. All right. I think part of the reason for this, that you need to do it yourself, is that they're trying to hire you. And I mentioned earlier that hiring you is a big risk. And so by having that conversation with you, you're decreasing that risk. They're getting to know you. They're trying to see, okay, is this a good fit here? So think, sell, and then finally deliver, right? They're hiring you. You have to deliver, whether it's like the coaching program, the training, the keynote speech, whatever it is, the consulting, you have to do that. So these are three things you can't farm out. Within that, when you're thinking about like, well, what am I thinking? What am I selling? What am I delivering? I'm going to show you what's called the cluster strategy. I was kind of thinking about if I want to say something else first. And we're going to get into this in a little bit more depth. So, message, market, and method, which coincides with think, sell, deliver. So your message is, what is it that you know that you're trying to get out to the world? And actually, let me zoom out a little bit. So I just realized you probably weren't seeing my slide. This cluster, you can think of a cluster as almost like a package. If you were to package what you sell or what you do, like if you say you have a coaching package or you have this training program, that we could think of as a cluster. So let me show you this, what it looks like. So message, market, method. So the message is what you know. What is it specifically that you're going to be sharing or teaching in this particular cluster? Okay. Market is like, well, who are you marketing this to? And this is where you want to be as specific as you can. I love the person, and I forgot who you were now, but who said that you do, was it time management for people above 50?
Lisa.
Lisa. Who's your Lisa, can you repeat what it is that you put in the chat earlier?
We do sales and marketing to people 50 plus.
Yeah, so it's like
are selling into that market.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like, it's more specific than just like, yeah, I do sales and marketing, right? Like you're focused, you're more focused. That's what we're talking about when we talk about market here, is who values what it is that you're teaching. And then finally, the methodology. And I'll show you 6 methodologies that you can be considering. And I'm sure there's more of that, but we'll look at 6 different ones. And that's how you share whatever it is that you're doing. So I want to talk briefly, though, before we get into the method and the mode, or sometimes it's called the mode, a little bit more about thinking and this concept of like the actual thought part of thought leadership. So if you are a thought leader in a certain area, let me think about this. How do I say this? Most of you who are experts, you know, say, for instance, like time management, there's probably certain books or things that you've read that like everybody who knows time management and teaches it has read it. That would be something like David Allen. I think it's called Getting Things Done. Yeah, I'm getting a head nod. Okay, thank you. It's been a while since I read that. You can think about that there's probably at least 3 different types of books that you need to have read. So one is the classic book. We'll use that example, like David Allen's. One is like a contemporary book, maybe a more recent book, but that's really popular. And then one would be like a really current book that's written in the last year. I don't know why I'm on a time management kick, because I'm not an expertise in this at all. But a colleague of mine just about a year or so ago wrote a book called The 25-Minute Meeting. Her name is Donna McGeorge. She's out of Australia as well. And so that would be like a current book. And the point that somebody made about like, hey, you have to keep practicing this stuff. You have to stay up to date. Yes. I think one of the best ways to do that is you got to read. Like you just read the books, like find the stuff, right? So you want to be consuming information, but you're reading this as not just like taking whatever it is as this is fact, but you're reading this with a bit of discernment, and you're deciding, do I agree with this or do I not agree with this? And as a thought leader, your opinion matters. Like your opinion is what is the leadership aspect of it, right? So you can, I know people that will like take notes on a book, and one side of the page, it'll say yes, and like, these are the things I agree with. And the other side of the page says yes, but, and it's like, these are the things that like, I'm not so sure, or I might want to push back on a little bit. Right. So that can be a really helpful way to read a book. And then what are you going to do with that information? So ideally, you're going to put it out in the world, writing, whether it's a blog post, whether you're writing a book, whether you're, maybe have a podcast episode about it. That's also the leadership part. So you got to put it out there. Now, from all of that, you can hone in on what's the message that I want to sell in my cluster. Right. Are y'all with me? Okay, cool. I'm going to have you all create clusters in a moment. Let's talk about method before we jump in, and then I'm going to have you all create a cluster. Okay, so method or modes of delivery. There are 6. Again, this comes from the same Thought Leaders Business School. So there are 6 modes of delivery. And I mean, we could break out many more, right? But these are big categories. So you can see on the screen, there's this table. The first column there is one to many. So speaking, training, facilitating. And in speaking, the kind of the differences between these, speaking, I generally think of that as like you're up on stage, you're telling people, you're giving people information. I mentioned I gave a keynote yesterday. I was definitely in speaking mode. There was a few little small activities, but for the most part, it was like, at least 35, 40 minutes of it was me talking. Showing, training tends to be like a little bit more showing, demonstrating, maybe hopefully they're doing. And then facilitating tends to be a lot of asking, right? Like you're asking questions and then leading a dialogue, which is very similar to coaching. But the big difference between facilitating and coaching is that it's a one-on-one versus a one-to-many. Mentoring is where you're showing people, but it's just a one-on-one situation. So the difference between coaching and mentoring is, at least the way I look at it, and maybe you all have a better definition. Some of you actually might know this really well, but mentoring, you're basically, how do I say this? You can only mentor on things you've already done, right? So like, I am not going to ever be able to mentor someone as a school principal. I've never been a school principal. I've never actually even worked in a K-12 school. I would be a horrible mentor for them, but I could coach them, right? I could coach them on areas that I'm familiar with, but I'm not going to be a good mentor for them. And then the last one at the very top is authoring. So one-to-one, you're in like this telling mode. So questions right now on the modes of delivery or on this cluster strategy concept? I'm sure this is not brand new to any of you, but might just be presented in a little bit different way. But any questions? Craig?
If you were to expand this more to consulting, then it could be a combination of these, right? Because consultants author, they mentor. Yeah, okay.
How do you define consulting, Craig?
Well, I leave it for the group in a way, but longer term engagements where you dive deeper than a one-off. I mean,
totally.
Speakers, you come in, you're out. Training, there could be a contract, but for consulting, there's a longer term relationship. And if you do well, once you get that nose in the tent.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with you. Like when you're thinking about that longer term relationship, that consulting, yes, you're doing overlapping. And what I have found is that
and Yael Shai has a question as well.
Okay, so you can be, someone might have to mute because they might be feeding back. Generally, let me put this back up. 3 of them, let me spell it myself again. If you are good at, like often people will have like 3 of them or like a right angle. So maybe training, facilitating, coaching. So sort of this right angle here, or authoring, speaking, training, or mentoring, coaching, facilitating. And you don't have to have it that way, but that's what I have just noticed that, as our personalities and our expertise in how we deliver, that's how it often plays out. And some people, it's like, no, I only do one-to-many things. Like I'm only speaking, training, and facilitating. I'm not doing any one-on-one work. So you don't have to be an expert in you don't have to deliver all of these modes. Some people do, but most people don't. So.
Amy,
yes,
Yael has a question.
Yes, go for it.
Hi. So I think that these lines can be very blurry sometimes. For example, I usually give interactive keynotes.
Yes.
Rather than just presenting, I'm having them do stuff as you're having us do stuff here. So they're not solid lines.
I would agree. In fact, that's a great point. It should make the lines sort of gray and fuzzy and yeah, absolutely. And I don't know that it even matters. This is more just for our own internal, for us to think about, how we want to approach it and how we might, and some of it is a little bit of communicating. I'm going to say to a client, yes, I'll come and do a keynote speech for you. And they kind of have this idea of what that means. and even though I have to sometimes convince them, like, we're going to do a little interaction, even though they get nervous sometimes. But anyway, yeah. All right. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about what opportunities might be available to you if you were to offer additional delivery modes. So if you're focused more on, say, training and facilitating, what might happen if you were to expand that out and also add coaching, or also add keynote speaking, or also add authoring? So I want you to just think about that. Maybe actually throw a comment or two in the chat of, what might happen? What opportunities might come up? I'm just reading the notes in the chat real quick here. Oh yeah, Anna, I totally agree with your comment about mentoring. Mentoring is more than showing. It goes beyond the how-to. There's a guidance there. Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree with you. Yeah, learning how to do show and tell in kindergarten would come in handy later in life. Absolutely, Shelley. What is that? Like everything we ever need to know in life, we learn in kindergarten. I love it. Cool. All right. So this question, what opportunities might be available to you if you offer additional delivery modes? Deborah says more full school programs for kids and teachers and parents. So just like expanding a bit there. More guest interviews to showcase your expertise. Yes. Yael says I need to add more authoring and mentoring. Ulrika says if I also train, I could create an online course. Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Y'all are definitely thinking in the I was going to say in the right direction. Not that there's like a wrong, but I like it. All right. So I want you to, if you have a piece of paper, scrap paper, Post-it note, something near you, what is one cluster that you already have going? If it's helpful for you, you can write that down, and you can actually literally just draw the Venn diagram out. So what's going in the message slot there? So what is it that you're, teaching on, coaching on, speaking, whatever it is? What are you consulting on? And then I want you to write down the market. Who are you doing that to? Who's hiring you for that? And then what's the methodology? So you're just taking a moment and writing down a cluster you already have going. If you do, I know some of you're all in different stages, but. And then in a moment, I'm going to ask you to write down a cluster you want to do in the future, potentially in 2022. So if you're already done with the first one, you can move on to that. All right, so hopefully you're thinking about what's a new cluster you might create in 2022. And we're going to do a quick activity here for you all as a way for you to share this. So I'm going to share if you'll just look at my screen, take a moment and look up. And in a moment, we're going to put a link in the chat for another activity using this Climer Cards app. But in this case, there's only one card to pick. So everyone's going to pick this card, click on it, and then I want you to write out in this space here, message : and then put your message, market : put your market, method : and put your method. Let me show you what that might look like. So right here, and you're going to do this for the future program, what you might want to do in 2022. I don't know why, but I did this on a previous program, but it's going to look something like this. You can see this example on the screen where I put message, market, mode, and I just wrote all that out. So we just put a link in the chat for you. Shelley put that link in there. Lisa, try that again. You could just click at the bottom where it says add new response. Is anyone having tech difficulties? Okay. Shelley, yes. Question? Oh, no, you're good.
It seems like it's not showing up on after I click on it the way it showed up on your example. So perhaps a tech difficulty.
Okay. So did you click on,
I clicked
Oops.
on the link.
And then do you see what's on, does it look like what's on my screen?
I see. It seems like we need to click on the image.
Yes, you do. You have to click on that image there.
That's what everyone needs to do. Click on the
Yes.
Venn diagram image, and that will open up another window.
Yes, correct.
I have a question about that too. This is Sheila. You showed your example. Are all but it's gone, and I'm trying to remember. You're entering message, market, and method all in the space why I chose this card.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. This, to be honest, is a little bit of an experiment. So these questions are great. Shelley, I think we will go into breakout rooms for about 3 minutes in a moment. And they could just be the same breakouts before or a new one, either way, as we talked about before. But we'll just keep the timing a little shorter. So, Luann, yes, I'm very curious why it's not working for you. You can put that in the chat if you want. All right, y'all are rocking this. I see a lot of awesome responses. Cool. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to send you back into breakout rooms with 1 or 2 other people. And in your breakout room, want you to just quickly share what your message is, your market is, and your mode is. And each person share first, and then have a conversation about, like, does this make sense? Like if I'm in a group with Craig and Craig shares, then he's going to use me as a check to make sure it makes sense. And so just have a dialogue about that for a few moments. And we're going to just give you about 3 minutes. It'll be pretty quick. All right, we'll open the breakout rooms now and see you back here in about 3 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone. How are your conversations? Yeah, good. Thumbs up. Awesome. I'm looking through your responses here to the different the clusters, the method, market, and mode that you might, the message, market, and mode that you might implement in 2022. And I'm loving it. Yeah, there's some really great ones here. I appreciate that many of you have, I think, done a pretty good job of getting more narrow with your market. Some of you could probably go a little bit more narrow, but sometimes you just kind of figure that out as you start, right? Yeah, this is great. I just noticed this, Alice. Roberta's rules for small meetings versus Robert's rules, which are, gosh, I hate those. What questions are percolating up for you right now about, there's the book, Bruce, thanks. What questions are popping up for you about clusters? Anything in particular at the moment? I'm seeing a question in the chat. Ulrika asked, can these cards be exported or saved? Yeah, so I will send you all, or I'll just send to Craig or Ulrika, what you all put in the chat here. I'll send you essentially kind of like a screenshot of this, as well as the first activity with the Climer cards. But since you asked about that, let me just briefly explain what this thing is here, this app. I don't have them in front of me. Oh yeah, I do. Hold on. Sorry. about 10 years ago now, actually, I created this deck of cards called Climer cards. And it's that deck that you saw at the beginning with all the drawings. Then in 2020, I was getting a lot of requests, like, how do we use this virtually? And so I actually hired a software company to develop this app. It's an idea that I had percolating for like 6 years. And it is now available to anyone to use. So as facilitators, trainers, coaches, it's a great tool to just get people talking. And it's all about the question. And so you just put a question in there, select a card that represents blah, 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 whatever you want to talk about with your clients. And then they respond. And it's just a way to spark conversation. The way that I was using it here with the cluster, this is something I just literally experimented today with you all. So one of the virtues of the app is that you can upload your own decks of cards. So as facilitators, like if you've created a deck you've ever used, you can upload them and use them with your clients. And so I just decided, well, what if I just upload one card and everybody clicks on the one card and then we can all see each other's responses. Just as a different way, rather than like putting this all in the chat. It's just like a little different way to engage a group. So it seemed to work pretty well. There's definitely a few glitches there that I might do differently next time. And we're working on making some changes to the app, so this will be a little bit cleaner. But I'm doing a free program on this next Thursday, on how to use this tool. It's called Virtual Climer Cards. And I can put a link in the chat for you all here. Let me put this link in the chat here. So I just put the link. It says curious about Climer cards. And if you go there and then click on events, you'll be able to see the event. You can sign up. It's next Thursday. I can't remember what time it is, but it's reasonable for if you're in California. You don't have to get up super early. So all right, so we're going to wrap up here in a moment. Would love to hear, you could throw in the chat, or if a couple people want to unmute themselves. Given what we just talked about thought leadership, I just threw a bunch at you, this new, well, I don't know if it's a new concept, but a different way to look at what a thought leader is, why you might want to think about doing it, how to develop your thoughts and how to get them out in the world, as well as this whole cluster strategy idea. What's an insight that you have from today? Any insights or aha moments? Throw those in the chat. Love to see those. And if anybody would rather just verbalize and wants to unmute, feel free to do that. And then I'm going to share with you all some resources. Deborah.
Yes. Hi.
Hi.
I've had the opportunity to hear you before and join in, and the experience is one more time awesome. So thank you for what you bring to the world. And yes, I have the Climer cards, and I have made use of them with the kids I work with, one-on-one as well as in small groups. So thank you. I have not used the virtual because it feels overwhelming to me. So I would love to participate and figure out how to make it not be so overwhelming. So question is, number one, is this event next Thursday recorded?
Yes.
Okay, good. And what I also want to share is a huge aha for me today was, and it's been pointed out to me before, but it was like I was getting in my own way, that I work with a lot of one-on-ones, that's predominantly, but I also teach a lot of workshops, workplace wellness programs, and why not offer a go in between that is an ongoing group program, so that people who maybe don't want to do as many consistent one-on-ones, but want to have the juice from the self-help acupressure information, and I'd offer it as a group, a small group. Hello.
Love it. Love it. Awesome. Nice job. That's super cool. All right. Any other insights you want to throw in the chat? Now is the time. What's something that you learned today that you want to throw in the chat, or you want to share verbally? Maybe do one more person.
Lisa Lamagna, did you have something you wanted to?
Oh yeah, it looked like you had your hand up.
I'm stretching my shoulder.
Okay. Anna, did you have something?
Well, I'm someone who is very technology driven, and so I just love these cards. I mean,
nice.
This was really awesome. And I don't know if you saw, but I was writing on the chat, But I was wondering if on a next version of these cards, there could be something where each of us could actually add some graphic element to the cards. You know, and I was thinking like with these clusters, you know, maybe like overlap them less or more, but you know, or actually add something to them, like downloading an image from it, just posting it there on the card. I think that
Yeah. Yeah, there is sort of a little way you could do that say like if you're facilitating a group. I'm not going to get into all the details now, but you could like collect images and upload them for the group. But right now it's not like a dynamic in the moment live. But yeah, that definitely would be something that in the future I might be able to add.
Well, in this, yeah. Oh,
go
I
ahead.
was going to say, and I just love your presentation. I mean, the content of it, and it really made me think about what I'm going to do this year. So
Nice.
Thank you. Besides the technology, but I was fascinated by the cards.
Well, thank you. Well, good. Well, let me just wrap up. I know that we're right at time here. So I just want to share with you all a couple resources. One, if you put your email in the chat, which many of you have already done, I will collect those and email that out to you. Some resources, but a couple things I want to point out. One is if you do want to sign up for Climer cards, it's free for 30 days just to play with the app. After that, it's literally $5 a month. So it's super inexpensive. It's very intentional about wanting to make it as accessible as possible. And yeah, you can just go to climercards.com, or we can drop the link in the chat again for you. And I also have a mentoring program, kind of a mentoring / coaching program for people who might be interested in like either transitioning into being more of a thought leader, or who are kind of like beginning that thought leader practice. Like maybe if you already have an established practice, but you want to switch to like more of a thought leader mode rather than expert mode, or if you're kind of new, developing your practice from the beginning. So if you're interested in that, I'll put a link in the chat. You can schedule a call with me and we can just chat about that and see if that's a good fit for you. And go out and be an amazing thought leader. Thought leaders have a great, huge impact on the world. And I wish you all the best, both with the impact you're making and the income you have coming in for you all. So thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thanks.